Welcome to my presentation of the problem, analysis, and solution. My friend John has worked in sales positions within the flooring industry for 13 years. Recently, he joined the sales team as a custom home sales representative at one of the largest flooring and design centers in Atlanta. During a conversation with John a few weeks ago, he expressed frustration with his new sales position, and on March 20th, I interviewed him to learn more about his responsibilities, goals and feedback, and any training he had received so far. After reflecting on our conversation and evaluating what I learned through the is, should, cause frame and gaps map described by Robinson et al. And Paiva, I identified four main areas where problems exist between what should be happening and what is happening. These gaps are the areas that require attention. First, John understands his primary task is to sell the flooring products to custom home builders, but the reality is he is also a project manager. He said, "I didn't realize I would be running my own business from start to finish." Next, other than a quick, "we just want you to sell" instruction given during his first week on the job, John did not receive clear goals until his 90-day review, when he learned his goal is to sell at least $300,000 worth of material. But he was not given a deadline, so naturally John wondered, within 60 days, 6 months, or a year from now? He was also told to contact 5 new builders. Again, he wondered, within what time period, and what constitutes a new builder? Finally, he was told to go on 10 installs within the next 6 to 8 weeks, but the protocol for this was not explained. After this review, John was left with more questions than answers. John told me that the lack of clear goals is causing him a heightened amount of stress and anxiety. Furthermore, he's beginning to question whether this is the right company for him. I was not surprised to hear this because research shows when employees are not given clear goals to meet, they experience lower job satisfaction, which can lead to turnover and tension. On day 30, John was called into his boss's office and was reminded that he should be at his desk from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. and report his appointments on the sales team calendar. Aside from that, John did not receive feedback or guidance again until last week when he had his 90-day review. My friend John knows how to sell, but he did not have experience using the customized sales quoting software used by his new company. He has tried self-teaching through the YouTube channel, but the screens don't align with what he's looking at on his laptop because of the software customization, leaving him confused and frustrated. When he brought this need for additional training to his boss, she advised him, "Just ask the other guys." But while the other sales reps are helpful, they are rarely in the office. This leaves John at a standstill on creating quotes, and as John put it, dead in the water. And in the meantime, his builders are waiting to hear from him. In addition, every company uses their own lingo that new employees need to learn. In this case, there isn't a terminology guide that John can reference to identify building materials properly. This is a problem because there are over 10,000 items listed in the sales quote system. As a result, John has spent hours hunting and pecking to build quotes. He said one day he just gave up. He told me, "I couldn't figure out where to find things, and no one was in the office to help me. I must have wasted 4 hours, and that has happened more than I care to admit," he said. External and internal factors are impacting this situation. In the company's favor, the housing market in Atlanta is growing steadily, and internally, the company has been successful for years. Internal factors negatively affecting the situation are the company does not have a learning culture, and John has two bosses, which is leading to a lack of formal authority. On the other hand, John has been successful in the flooring industry for 13 years, and he enjoys relationship building and selling. What's more, although John questions company practices, he is motivated to learn. This is relevant because, according to Berkeley and Kaplan, an employee's growth mindset coupled with training can empower them to contribute more effectively to their role and the organization as a whole. Performance management practices play a crucial role in motivating an employee by providing feedback, setting expectations, and aligning individual goals with organizational objectives. I sense from John there is a disconnect between these factors within the sales department at his company. We know from research employees are driven to perform and experience a sense of fulfillment when they are provided with clear goals and constructive feedback. These are all factors that help meet an employee's intrinsic need and lead to enhanced company commitment. Furthermore, although John possesses the basic knowledge, skills, and attitudes needed to do his job, there are specific content areas he needs to learn in order to perform effectively and help the company remain competitive. Now I'll lay out the strategy to address all four areas to help ensure John and future sales reps at the company are set up for success. Currently, the lack of role clarity is impacting John's performance. Therefore, I'll begin by working with Jane, his sales manager, and other sales leaders to establish the KSAs and competencies for the sales rep position. Specifically, competencies help clarify the behavior an employee should start or stop doing in order to be more productive. As recommended by Hunt, we will identify 5 to 10 job-specific competencies critical to business performance by answering questions such as, how do you define effective performance? A few key benefits to this performance management practices are aiding in consistent performance evaluation and providing effective feedback. Now that we know what competencies are needed to be successful in the role, the next step is to create performance goals. Following the skills training process, I will train Jane on how to create SMART performance goals for her team that are tied to strategic business objectives. First, Jane will review the monthly and quarterly key performance indicators for the sales department, and then together we'll establish specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goals. In this case, it is important to reiterate the need for goals to be specific. Reflecting back, urging John by saying, "We just want you to sell," gave him no clear indicator or standard by which he could monitor, evaluate, and if necessary, modify his performance. After learning about the SMART goal framework, Jane will see how an ambiguous goal will leave her employees confused and demotivated. Also, it is important for Jane to create both learning and performance goals. Research shows it is common for a new employee to experience anxiety, which results in fractured thinking, thereby delaying their learning outcomes. Therefore, establishing learning goals before specific high performance goals is an effective strategy, especially for new employees. Successfully meeting learning goals first will lead to increased self-efficacy, job satisfaction, and commitment. Then, in time, John can join the more established team members and work toward high performance goals. During week 1 on the job, John received a sales training plan document that outlines training activities for the first 12 weeks. After our interview, John emailed the document to me and explained that approximately 80 to 90% of the activities on the list have not occurred. Notably, there are at least 3 weekly opportunities for structured feedback, and if they were happening, would benefit him greatly. In fact, Heller and Paiva report that maintaining open lines of communication through continuous feedback loops on both development and performance throughout the employee lifecycle can lead to increased commitment. Training Jane on the techniques needed to deliver specific feedback tied to the sales position competencies will lead to John's improved performance. In addition, explaining how neuroscience and feedback intersect will help Jane understand how to structure her feedback effectively. Interestingly, when a person receives feedback, the brain is prepared for the threat response, and if the person gets overly emotional, the ability to think clearly stops and the feedback is not heard. Training Jane to structure feedback around the SCARF model will help remedy this phenomenon in 2 ways. First, the brain will come to a non-judgmental acceptance of receiving the feedback. And second, John will move away from the threat response, keeping him out of emotionality and in a growth mindset. This will ensure he is able to use the feedback he receives. Next, to develop a sales training for John and future sales reps, it is necessary for me to receive the buy-in from the sales leadership team. As Berkeley and Kaplan explain, a successful training needs 2 things: a strategic vision and a leadership team that supports the learning process. The leaders must support the idea of training by being ready to facilitate the learning, encouraging participation, and celebrating accomplishments. Furthermore, because my analysis revealed the company lacks a learning culture, my initial objective is to help the leadership team understand their supportive role and how training can impact the bottom line. By following a backward design strategy, we first defined 5 desired training outcomes or results, then determined the measurement used to prove the training goals were accomplished, and finally, we will design the learning experience to achieve the desired objectives. For the purposes of this assignment, I am choosing to focus on the 2 learning outcomes highlighted in gray. Kenny, the sales subject expert, and I established the learning objectives for weeks 1 through 4 using Bloom's taxonomy. You can see that the cognitive level of learning increases with each training session, ending with week 4, where the new employee will meet with the sales manager to demonstrate their proficiency using the software by accurately generating 4 sales quotes and explaining the workflow for each. The training plan begins with a focus on the 2 learning outcomes, the software and the sales workflow. Kenny, the top sales rep, and Jane, the sales manager, will deliver the training. This is important because by participating in the training, Jane will learn how to support and coach the employees during their first few weeks and months on the job. The training will bridge the gap between the KSAs and competencies the new employee has when they join the company and what they need in order to accurately perform their jobs. Before the training session begins, the trainer will clearly communicate the expectations around what the trainees will learn, why they will learn it, and how the learning will be used on the job. Then they will see that the information learned will be used daily and lead to increased company revenue and personal finance. Connecting the training to intrinsic and extrinsic needs will facilitate learning transfer to occur from the training room to the job. The interactive training will take place in the conference room. The participants will have their laptop to engage with the software and access the company intranet for the workflow portion of the training. Kenny will train the reps on the software features by demonstrating on the big screen while the sales reps follow along on their laptops. He will train for 90 minutes in the mid-morning, and Jane will train for 90 minutes in the afternoon on the sales workflow process. Specifically, 3 20-minute content training sessions, 2 10-minute small group practice times, and 2 5-minute breaks will occur. Snacks and water will be provided. The learning domain for both training outcomes is cognitive, and the extrovert audience learning style will be considered, while information is presented in a variety of ways to maximize learning. For example, along with practicing using the software and the intranet during the training, the participants will be given time to reflect on the material presented. Then they will test their ability as they present their work to the other learners during a period of evaluation and sharing. These opportunities to work together and testing each other's knowledge will activate the brain's comprehension and reinforce learning. During weeks 1, 2, and 3 of the software and the sales workflow training sessions, I will be in the room as a silent observer to assess the participants' reaction to the training and their behavior. In addition, before the participants leave the room, they will be asked to complete a paper and pencil survey. The trainer, Kenny or Jane, will leave the room and I will administer the survey. The 7-question survey will include 3 trainer-focused and 3 learner-focused statements. 1 open-ended question will be included to give them an opportunity to voice their opinion about the training. Then, the final evaluation of the training, the facilitator, and the learners will culminate when the participants meet with the sales manager to demonstrate their ability to properly use the software and follow the sales workflow. As part of the evaluation of the training, the survey data will be provided to the sales leadership team for 3 reasons. 1 is that improvements can be made to provide better support for their new sales reps, which will improve their overall performance. The second is assessing whether the information learned is transferred to the job. And the third is to calculate the impact the training had on the organizational outcomes as defined in the training objectives. Finally, to ensure a high level of success, Jane, Kenny, and the other sales leaders must work together to encourage and reward new employees as their new knowledge and skills are reinforced on a regular basis. Embracing this training and others will ensure a learning culture exists in the organization, leading to better outcomes for the company and the team members. Thank you for listening.